Hi, I'm Jeremy, a researcher who's working in a hospital that specializes with the heart. And I'd like to introduce my R package, my first R package submitted to current called PreTest CAD. So before I start on what the package does, I will start with introducing what is coronary artery disease, which is defined as having a blockage in one of your heart vessels. The blockage is usually called a plaque, and this can lead to prolonged chest pain, shortness of breath, or even a heart attack. The main problem is that this disease is actually very hard to diagnose, and patients need to go for a lot of time consuming, expensive, and invasive tests for the doctors and clinicians to be sure that, oh, you actually have the disease. So for me, maybe I'm lucky, I may just need a stress test and a scan to be defined to have a disease. Other patients may not be so lucky, have to go through more tests. And because you have go through so many tests, it's very hard for clinicians and doctors to decide what kind of patients to go for what kind of tests. So they created something called the pretest probability, which is a estimated risk based on some risk factors like your age, your gender, or certain clinical history that you have, that the patient have a disease before we confirm it to have a test. So it's mainly to help clinicians, the doctor, to organize like what kind of patients should go for what kind of tests. So in this picture here by the European Society of Cardiology, you can see that people with low risk, well, they don't really need further testing after a stress test. Whereas person from a higher risk, maybe we want to check it a bit more to confirm that whether the patient really has a problem or not. So how are these pretest probabilities are calculated? Well, because we are clinicians and doctors, we don't like complicated things. So things can be as simple as a table, flow chart, or if it's a complicated formula like a logistic regression, they usually have an online tool for us to calculate one patient at a time. Well, these pretest models will change over time, and for me, it becomes tedious to help the clinicians to calculate and update those probabilities one patient at a time, and the number of patients will always increase, never decrease. So that's how it got me started with the making R package. After seeing like there are so many R packages for cardiovascular disease, why not create one for coronary artery disease? So this is how it looks like. It's just a simple package that calculates these pretest probabilities. And I try to, let's see, I can scroll down. There we go. I have all these tests that's from the past and the present, and I collect them together into one R package. So since this is not a medical talk, so I just will show very briefly how it works. For someone with a symptom score of 3 and no risk factors, they just give a 2 in this table. It's just very simple for this case. And we try to also make it flexible. So usually medical data are not always complete. We don't have everything about the patient. So sometimes the clinicians want a bit more flexibility to say, okay, let's tolerate 2 missing data. Let's assume they don't have it. And I added this additional input to get this additional tolerance for them so they can still have the values and not just give a missing NA. Clinicians also complain that the R error messages are not very helpful for them when there's issues. So I try to adopt things that I learned from use R last year to give nice error messages. And this is how it looks like when you input something very strange. It tells you very nicely, this is not the right kind of input. And here are just some examples that can help the clinicians understand what they have gone wrong in the process. And what I like about the R-lang argument match is that if you have a spelling mistake that's very close, they can say things like, oh, do you mean it's male or not? Another thing I learned from, there's another one is that you also can use the R package as a part of the per hour workflow. So because the input is the data itself, this is how it looks like. I just input a data set with patients, and you can use the per hour package to run it as iteration. And I'm also developing a new version such that I learned something from this year's Our Medicine talk. And what he does is that he adds a flexible input that allows people to put different labels, like females, in their own unique forms, like numbers, codes, and so on. And I was thinking, since Singapore is also a multi-language society, I can do that, right? I can put it in Chinese, put it in Malay, Tamil, and it still gives the output that I want. And if there's some error messages like this, and sometimes labels, people may duplicate them for some strange reason. We also tell them nicely, you should not duplicate these labels. You should have only one of them for each category. With that, I'd like to thank you everyone for listening. And my package is available on CRED, our universe, and GitHub. And I know there are going to be a lot of bugs because it's my first release. So we'll see how it goes. All right, that's all. Thank you for listening.